What's going on, guys? It's Adam P, and welcome back to what is going to be just an unedited initial reaction. We're going to talk about the big news that has just came up before, exclusive from Luke Edwards. And I know some Newcastle fans who know Luke Edwards well aren't the biggest fan of him, but he's not going to be wrong on this. He's posting an exclusive claim on that Newcastle United has agreed £130 million to sell Alexander Isak today, and just like that, after what has been such a remarkable saga that's dragged on all summer long, has such an anticlimactic, uneventful end. Started deadline day, hasn't been any back and forth Newcastle and Liverpool. It just seems to be a mutual agreement, £130 million. We're going to get Isak out now. And I feel mixed about it. Now, start off in the negatives. I promised at the start of transfer window, if Isak joins Liverpool, I'll wear a bloody Liverpool shirt. So that's the first problem we've got. We'll mention that over the next couple of days. So I'm not pleased in that respect, but it's been one where it's been such a development because I didn't think Isak would behave like this summer. I was always confident at the start of the window that Newcastle, we were always going to get interest in Isak. I feel like if you were not expecting any football team to try and sign Isak this summer, you're always going to be deluded in saying that. But I felt like Newcastle had control in it until the bombshell player wanted out and didn't just want out, who would do anything and everything to get out of Newcastle. And over the last couple of months, it's just been horrific. It has been horrific. And to kind of see all that, and now I think it's a real sigh of relief for Newcastle because you really have just cleaned out the negativity in the background. But means nothing if we don't sign a striker today. £130 million, I think the actual valuation, I'm happy enough with it. I know Newcastle fans watching this video are going to be like 150 now. Who actually said Newcastle would sell Isak for 150 million? Who on this planet actually said that Isak is worth 150 million pounds? That's just what Newcastle believes the player was worth. But in terms of transfer market, in terms of wherever you look at, is Isak actually a player that is worth 150 million pounds? I think it is subjective to look at it. 130 million pounds. That is a British transfer record fee. It's the most expensive striker, or any player actually in the Premier League for that matter, has ever been sold. Some problems, the big one being the lack of striker. If we don't sign a striker today and it's Wilson Isak out with only Nick Voltemare coming in, that's a problem. That's a real problem. I actually can't defend Newcastle if we do not sign a second striker today because you put everything, you were talking everything on this season into a 23-year-old German striker, never played in the Premier League. And in terms of pressure, injury, any bad performance of him, that is going to derail our season. All the performances and all the pressure and everything has amounted onto one player who looks brilliant. I can't wait to see what he can do for Newcastle, but that's a lot of pressure. You need someone behind him, and Wissa doesn't look possible. Strand Larson currently doesn't look possible, and with the sale of Isak being potentially in the early hours of the morning, sounds like Newcastle trying to get him out nice and early so then they can splash money and then they can go in and then they can try and get a striker in. And I feel like my opinion towards Isak and this situation will change throughout the day. But I have to say now, in terms of raw opinion, I don't mind the sale, but I do mind us not bringing anyone in. If we do not bring anyone in now, you've sold two players and brought one in. That I just don't get that. You wouldn't do that going into the Champions League season. I really would struggle to defend the club on that. To be honest, you have to bring a striker in. We just sold a guy for £130 million. If you actually put that money back in and get the striker sorted, I'm happy with that. Isak thing, I don't know. I was just expecting a bit more, I guess, fight today, a bit more spark. Maybe that's the good thing, actually, because if we get this all one done with now before supporters wake up, before fans wake up, the damage and the blow is already gone. And I actually made a video a few hours ago going through the fact that Alexander Isak had been spotted with his barber at his home. Now, I used a photograph in there, and the photograph was from a few days ago, so it wasn't accurate to the story, but it was true. Alexander Isak was still in Newcastle tonight, and it was true. Fresh trim from the barbers had it all sorted, and yeah, we can see why that is now. Fresh trim, he's ready to go to Liverpool today, so he'll be going to Anfield, he'll be doing his medical, he'll be taking it in with the supporters, and within a couple of days, I've got to wear a stupid Isak Liverpool shirt, so I'm livid about that. But honestly, £130 million for the player, I have to say it is good money. You're signing for just over £60 million. in terms of any Isak negatives I could say, he's never been fit for the entire season. So for Liverpool, looking at a potential option alongside Ekitike, and I'll be intrigued to see how the pair of them are going to work actually, because I think especially how good Ekitike has been as the focal point. Having Isak in there, what are they going to do? And that's a Liverpool team as well. Isak and Mark Gay in today, and my word, they were already top of the table and already won every game before these two players coming in. You might as well have had a quadruple at this point. You might as well have had every single trophy in football, because that team was ridiculous and that team has just got even more better. And I feel like Newcastle fans will be negative towards this. I'm trying to feel and trying to understand what the collective fan base will say about us. And I think there is going to be negativity towards this. And the big point I've just said before, what's the point of selling Isak if you don't replace him, basically? I know Nick Waltermate is effectively the Isak replacement, but we still haven't replaced Callum Wilson, so what's the point of selling Isak today if you don't actually bring a striker in? If we bring a striker in later on today and we have a medical and we have someone coming ready to play for Newcastle in the next 2 weeks, I'm all for it. I would actually say now, if I knew Newcastle was going to bring a striker in today, hell, I would drive Isak down to Liverpool myself. Like, I've got no issues with Newcastle selling the player today. If Claire doesn't want to be here, £130 million is mental money. Let's not lie, it is mental money for Alexander Isak. I'm certainly happy in terms of the financial side of it, but you can't leave yourself short-sighted. Not in the Champions League. We've waited a couple of years to come back in the Champions League. Eddie Howe, the players, you've seen those performances this season. You are talking potentially 3 wins. We could have been up the top of the table with Liverpool based on performances, because the performances there, a striker would have won Newcastle all those games so far, and we have dropped 7 points. 7, because of the Alexander Isak situation, not having that striker in there. And then you've sold Isak for basically about just over £10 million more than what Liverpool actually offered well over a month ago. So when you look at the performances and you look at what's happened to Newcastle, was the £10 million jump worth it in the end? It's a tough question. It's a tough question to talk about and a tough answer to give. And we'll have a couple of videos in the morning and the afternoon going through more detail, of course, all edited up. For now, I just wanted to give you my initial opinion, initial reaction, just my raw emotion towards it, because I feel a mixture of emotions. I'm not going to lie. I just think the entire saga itself has been so over the top. It's been so dramatic. It's been so much going on. So many highs, so many lows, so many back and forth. And then just to kind of end so abruptly like that. It's not even, you're talking the literal start of deadline day, midnight on the dot. Exclusive came out, and I believe the exclusive. I think it is a done deal. I think Liverpool is going to sign Alexander Isak and potentially Mark Gay, both of them in the same day. And in terms of deadline days, I have to say that's one of the best ever transfer deadline days I've personally seen. Those two players coming in is just mental. All depends on what Newcastle does next. I've got no issues with selling. I've got no issues with this happening. I've got no issues with this at all. My issue is whether we actually bring a player in today. If we don't sign a striker today, we have shot ourselves in the foot and we look stupid, because Newcastle, it was us, by the way, that actually had the requirements this summer to sell Isak. It was either £150 million, that's not going to happen, or it was 2 strikers coming, Isak goes. So we've sold Isak after one's came in and we haven't got a second one yet. So Newcastle's actually went against their own requirements, and Newcastle's went against their own requests and what they wanted to do to allow an Isak sale. So they've actually went against what they have said, which is just, in a business point of view, you've got to look at it and go, well, what are we doing? And that is an unfortunate criticism, as much as I don't want to critique Newcastle, because I think Eddie Howe, the players in the club, you kind of have to understand our point of view as well. You've got a player that's refusing to play, refusing to train. He's doing everything in his power to get out of Newcastle. That is going to be hard to deal with. That's hard for Newcastle to work with. And be here now and talking just after midnight about what's happened at Newcastle and what is going to happen next. The second question is always hard to answer in terms of what's going to happen next. But what's happening now is at Liverpool. It's on. It's actually on. Deadline day, the final day of the summer transfer window. Newcastle has finally budged and have accepted the price where Liverpool swapped in and swapped out straight away. I have to wait and see, to be honest. I find it hard at the minute to be able to properly critique Newcastle, because again, if we sign a striker today, my emotion, my mindset and my reaction will completely change. I think it literally depends on that. If we replace Isak and get a second striker in today, I'm all fine for it. But if we don't do that today, there'll be a different reaction to the video. It'll be quite an angry and annoyed reaction from me. But the fact that this is a thing now, the fact that this is getting done now, tells me Newcastle during the day is going to do something. I think there's a lot of time to do something. Sharon Larson, worst case scenario, Wissa, you're talking £65 million. God, I hope we never ever do that. But in a worst case scenario, you do have options there. You can potentially throw stupid money at the wall and bring someone in. We have to wait and see, club, how desperate would Newcastle be and how certain is Newcastle going to be that we're going to get someone today. Again, if we sign someone today, it's fine. But initial reaction, £130 million for Isak. I felt like deep down, anything over £130 million, I would be happy and content with. And while it's not over £130 million, it's the exact amount. That's the minimum I think we need to sell him for. I'm happy enough. It could have been less. Could have just kept them in the club and had an even bigger problem this season for every single match. But Alexander Isak is a C. Newcastle fans called him at the games and he's out. He's out of the club now. No longer our mess to deal with, and Liverpool fans will be buzzing him rightfully so. You get a couple of brilliant years out of him. But if the player continues to do well, who knows what you'll do in a few years. Once he does it once, agent, player, message to the footballing world. If you misbehave, if you sign 6-year contracts and then just go against that contract, you get what you want. That is the message that we and the message that the players themselves have been able to portray this summer. It's incredible. A player that can just not do what his contract tells him and just get his move anywhere. So, yeah, we've set a bad precedent for football as well. But has this sort of thing happened throughout football history? Absolutely, yes. So Newcastle is not the first. However, bad message to be set out as well. Players can misbehave, players can do what they want, and in the end, they'll still get their moves and they'll still go to the clubs they want to go to. So, yeah, let me know your opinions down below. It's my raw reaction for now, just getting through a couple of videos during the day. We're going to get through a lot more detail and explain what's going on. But for now, Alexander Isak, £130 million, done deal to Liverpool is the claims that's been quoted on social media. But take care.